Greetings, everybody. This is April 11th, Friday. Uh, I'm going to be releasing two videos today. One of them, both of them are off schedule, but uh, one of them is about this protest, and that is not the weekly news video, but it's important. So, and it's the first one. It's the first unscheduled video that I've made that I was happy to give. So, first of all, I already told you that I got sick as a result of going to this protest. Do not let that discourage you from going to these protests. Which, by the way, I got sick. I didn't get beat up. And I'll explain that a little bit later. Because these were incredibly peaceful. Miraculously peaceful. But the reason why I got sick was because I haven't been taking care of myself. I didn't take my supplements. I didn't get enough sleep. I did things that actually screw with my sleep schedule. I engaged in things that I should know better than to do them. And don't be surprised, by the way. Don't be surprised if you hear about it later. Do not be surprised. I'm far from perfect. But we just have to work with what we have right now. In any case, I did not take care of myself, and you all kind of paid the price for it as well, in that you didn't get to hear from me. Luckily, it wasn't about something as critical as the weekly news, but still, you didn't get to hear from me, and that sucks. So, one thing that I'm going to talk about before I get into the actual protests themselves, which were miraculously peaceful, is the reason why that they were peaceful. A more competent version, like we do not deserve to have the opportunity to have protests. And this is this person whose account is called Park Rose Permaculture. I direct you to her videos all the time. And I direct you to her videos all the time, but it's not a... It is not... It's a good channel, and I direct people there all the time. But I have a couple of issues with some of the arguments that she makes, and this is one of them, is that, oh, we have to be the big, strong, determined American people, and by being macho enough, we're going to be able to do this. We're going to be able to guarantee that we'll be safe if we're all macho. Doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. Sorry. It does not work like that. We have greatly weakened ourselves. And if you remember back to the first couple of weeks of this regime, basically, the self-proclaimed Trump administration, I'm going to call it from now on, because I've explained that he's not really the president under the Constitution. But he could have totally a more vigorous and more intelligent Trump we could have totalitarianism right now. Anybody who talks on their cell phones about going to a protest, let alone shows up in the street or holds a sign, could awful things I'm not going to talk about it very much. That could exist today. That could exist today, and it doesn't. It's not some scary bugaboo that could happen in the future. It could, maybe, if we really screw up. We do have to be brave. But this is so this is just building some context out for this, for what this protest was like. And that's the first one, is daily reprieve. And it's one that comes from the addiction recovery world of one day at a time. This is not we did not earn this. And because of that, we should treasure it, and we should use the heck out of it, because we can't count on it. We don't deserve this. We don't deserve to have the chance to protest. So, I apologize. This is my third filming of this, because I've been such a mess. It's gonna be my last. But anyway, so, and the final thing is, I was not before we went to these protests, and this is an attitude we should have in general, because it's far from guaranteed that they're all going to be this peaceful. My attitude going in was that we have nothing left to lose. And it's just that simple to me. We have nothing left to lose when it comes to these. We have nothing left to lose when it comes to my word. I'm sorry for dragging you around so much. When it comes to my attitude about it is, I am 18 years old. If I want to live past 40, because these people do not have a plan. It's one of my favorite quotes from Biden. You don't have a plan, Donald. You don't have a plan. From the 2020 debates. They don't have a plan. They don't have a plan to keep mankind alive, which is something that we can't take for granted right now. We should. This is not normal, but we can't take that for granted. They don't have a plan. So, my attitude about it is that I don't care what they do to me, because I have nothing left. I'm coming from the position of we have nothing left to lose. A 20-year life of misery that ends along with everybody else's. So, you can't make any mark on the world. Nothing you do matters. I shouldn't even be saying this, but I'm sure a lot of you feel that way. Feel free to boo. I'm going to talk about that later. Boo make your displeasure heard in the comments towards these ideas. But they are ideas that I hold in my darkest moments, and they're real. They are what happens if this goes wrong. And so I don't care what they do. Like, if these get violent, they'll either get violent enough that we won't be able to win, or they won't get violent enough. And like, I want to do what I can so that I can live past 40. And if I don't, then I don't care how short it is. I don't care if they're going to make it really short or not. The only acceptable thing for me is that we get to survive this and rebuild. And I'm going to say that, make that abundantly clear, and that's a big theme of this video. So those are some of the statements about the context that we're in. So, what was the rally like? It was incredibly peaceful, a lot more than I expected, to the point where so many people brought their children with them. Uh, it was largely there were about 5.2 million people were on the streets, and only one arrest was made, and it was an arrest of a Proud Boy, because we did not make any trouble. Just a Proud Boy. Sadly, it was largely a lot of the reason why it was peaceful, as covered in other outlets. People have theorized that a lot of the reason why this was so peaceful was because it was largely white, and if there had been more people that looked different from me there, it might not have been so peaceful, and that's a tragedy. But, uh, so, so the crowd was enormous at this place. Uh, it was about, this is somewhere in Metro West. Uh, about 200,000 people live within 15 miles of here. So this is in the Boston area that I've already said that I live in the Metro Boston area. And this was one of the protests that was in that area in one of the suburbs. It was a big one, but it was pretty Trumpy as well. Uh, these are the outer regions, and this was a pretty Trumpy place, one of the most of any of these developed areas, one of the most Trumpy. And there was a lot of people that showed up anyway. It was enough to fill the entire, just about the entire square, 2 to 3 blocks, uh, completely full. About, actually, maybe like 3/4 full. At the very back of the common, there was there were walking paths that you could walk through, and there was a little bit of space. The paths were clear, but at the front, when you got past the halfway mark, it was completely full. So this was absolutely incredible number of people for the place that it was in. Uh, I've heard stories about places that were rural, that were in which hundreds of people, 10,000 people, 15,000, in which hundreds of people turned out. These were places that overwhelmingly voted for Trump as well, and yet, same. So, these protests were large, as the first thing, and they were very peaceful. Uh, they were large enough, little inconvenience that I had there. I could not hear. There was a skit that was being done that was like the Lion King 2024 election themed. That's what it was. It was like the 2024 election, but the Lion King, and with Lion King characters, and I loved it, but I barely got to hear any of it, and that's because the audio equipment was not designed for the size of the crowd that we got. So that was a pretty big deal. If any of you could tell me if there were other skits or any kind of video on demand for any of these protests, like a full length video of 2 hours, full length steady video recording of 2 hours or so on the internet somewhere. If anybody could show me that, not even just of the one that I went to, not just in Massachusetts, anywhere in the country, preferably one that has a skit like that. It was from like the Catholic Workers of America or something. Maybe it wasn't. I'm misspelling it. But it was some kind of worker group. that seemed like it was from. It was definitely a very old group, and they did a comedy skit there. But I never got to hear it, so I'd love to hear it on the video, to have some kind of video on demand of one of these protests. So I walked through the crowd, and it was from walking through the crowd, by the way, that I believe that I got sick. So if you want to be paranoid about it, whenever you're moving, it might be a good idea to wear a mask at one of these events. Or certainly if there's a pandemic, wear masks if you ever go to one. But, so, I went through the crowd twice. The first time was to find my uncle, and that took a while because of how large it was. But I moved through the crowd out almost clear across the entire common, the entire square. And when this is a pretty big one, this is like two, again, I said, this is 3 blocks or so, the size of the square. I crossed pretty much the whole thing, and to find one of my uncles, and he took me later on back through the crowd, trying to look for his one of his friends that he was never able to find. But while he went there, I was able to get to a place where I finally could, a high place that was lovingly left clear of anybody, where I could, hear from the loudspeakers what was being said, and number 2, my voice if I ever wanted to cheer or boo or anything, and this comes in later. My voice projected really far. And so that is where we get to the main reason why I even made this video. This is the big thing that I remember, and that is that something happened there that was bizarre, and I noticed it, and I caught it, and that was when they said, at one point, the speaker got to quoting somebody else, and he spoke of the idea that 250 years or whatever it is a good run. And he said, 250 years is a good run for American democracy. 10,000 years is a good run for agriculture, for mankind. Something like that. And to me, right now, those two are synonymous, by the way. That's why it's absolutely unacceptable for us to give up. So he said that, and they went on, and I am in the minds of a lot of these people. I understand their mindset completely. They all knew. People tried to say, they didn't know what was being said at that moment. No, if they listen to any of the people that I listen to, they know exactly what they just heard. Not one single person in that whole crowd booed at that. They booed at all kinds of other things. Obviously, they're not booing at the speaker. They're booing at ideas that are being talked about. All kinds of other ideas, but hopelessness? They sure didn't boo at that. It was like what I feel like, here's what my explanation. I discredited the other explanations that they didn't know. And all of this, this explanation, is about a fraction, is about a couple of seconds. But they were such a revealing couple of seconds that they're the most memorable thing from the entire protest. And they're hopeful. They're a lot more hopeful than I'm painting them right now. But what happened was that, if you notice the jump cut, sorry, that was just because I had to plug in my camera. So, yeah, what my explanation, what I believe, is that the mindset there was we're going to this protest and we're going to pretend that, here's what I think the unconscious mindset was. We're going to this protest and we're going to pretend that we can stop this. We're going to pretend that there is hope and that we can actually stop this and that there can be a world after this and that we can survive. But deep down inside, what they feel is that it's ridiculous of them to expect that there's going to be totalitarianism, that the world's probably going to end. I don't know. I don't do the research because I don't want to hear that the world's going to end. They feel like and they feel like they're just lying to themselves by going to that protest and convincing themselves that they could stop this, which I get that attitude. It's what I talk about with fake it till you make it, but it revealed itself in that crowd, and with not a single person booing at that. So, but then I noticed that, and I was late because I was very tired that day. I was very slow. I interpreted it, and I was a slower than average person. But I heard what that said, and I knew what it meant, and I heard what that man said about it's a good run, 248 years, it's a good run. I've heard that in so many effing comment sections, by the way. It's not fun. That was my teleprompter, sorry. I've heard that in so many comment sections. No. I booed like crazy. I booed as loud as I could. Everybody else, as soon as I started, as soon as I created that example, everybody else started doing it. And he was on to another thing. He was almost moving on to something else. The speaker must have been a little bit surprised. And people must have felt everybody must have felt a little bit awkward because he was almost ready to move on to something else by the time we started. But, we booed, and everybody understood, I'm sure. The speaker didn't, I saw his face. He didn't seem very insulted or anything. But he set, and what that is, like, I have an entire theory. It's the reason why I wrote that paper that I'm going to be doing a reading from today. I have a whole entire theory, a whole entire hypothesis that is well supported, actually, as to why it's so, why this phenomenon exists, why we are in such a weak position right now. And I have answers, and I think they are the answers. I can't be certain, but I would need other people to read my paper and poke holes in it. But I'm pretty sure that they are the real ones. And I have read books. J.D. Unwin has written one or two books about why this, about the phenomenon that is currently happening in the U.S. He was so ahead of his time. He was writing in the 1930s. But he was ahead of his time, and he wrote about this phenomenon. He wrote about how mass child maltreatment and how large scale addiction, and I think, and there's a cycle between the two. There's a cycle between them. How both of those phenomena destroy entire societies, and most of the ones that he chronicled went into a period of state collapse when they I'm sorry about that, went into a period of state collapse when they went into a when they collapsed when they were, most of the countries afflicted by this. That was their fate, and only a few of them made it out of it. And so, ever since I had read that book, I have felt a very defeatist attitude about, and that was right before the election, and it's been compounded, obviously, since then, because I've seen it over and over and over again, the symptoms playing themselves out. But when I when I was on that platform and I booed and everybody else followed my example, it just felt like there was something in that crowd that shifted spiritually. And what that is telling me is that this big monster of childhood trauma that is the reason why we're in this mess is not invincible. It's not invincible. It's not unstoppable. We can beat it. We can stop it. And that's valuable. So that was just, and I hope my silence, I hope that you understood my silence there. I've been having a lot of silences because of just not being able to put my words together, which is because I am pretty exhausted and I've gotten a little rusty since I got sick. But my silence there, it is because it's profound. If you have good leader, the lesson that I took from there is that a good leader is that all that it takes to overcome the effects of Unwin syndrome, of this awful scourge that's been affecting our country and so many other countries like us. All that it takes is a leader that is willing to say, no, we want to live, and do it unapologetically. And like, I can name more things. Like, a simple boo is not, it's something, but ideally you would also have a plan for how not to do it. And a lot of the speakers at that series laid out concepts of a plan. I think there's a lot better work that's going on I've heard better plans online than the ones that I heard there, but there was some kind of a plan offered, but just the idea of no, we're gonna find any other way. We are not going to accept the idea that this is the end of something that we love, that gives us a reason to live. We're not going to accept that. And the idea that that is all that it takes to that is all that it takes to get to break the silence is leadership that is willing to say that. And it makes me think the reason why I am who I am, and this is not just about me, any of you that feel the way that I am, you are needed as well. Good leadership, I'm sure that there's other good leadership out there. There's a scarcity of it. But my lesson that I took away from it is that our resistance so far is weak. It is. I'm not, I saw it with my own eyes that it's weak. But I also saw that it can be better. It can be stronger. It can be more effective. That's the lesson that I took away from that. Every defeatist that I listen to that says that it can't be done, I trust them less, substantially less, today than I did today last week before I went to that rally because of what I saw. And granted, that is easy. It's easy to say in the abstract that we should not resign ourselves. It is more difficult to ask people to make sacrifices to get healthy. And there are people, and I will link to one of the blogs in my comment section that is an example of what not to do. Just utter anticipatory obedience. It was written a couple of years ago, I believe. But it's utter anticipatory obedience. That blog, I'm going to put a link there in the description and a content warning as well. Don't go there if you're likely to be triggered, if you have the kinds of vices that are in there. And if you read that and you feel triggered, turn away. Like, the part that I'm talking about is at the bottom of it. So you can go away pretty easily. But that, it's that I feel a lot, I trust, I listen to them a lot less now, to the people that are defeatist, because I have seen that in spite of all of the weaknesses that were clearly there, that they're willing to do that, and I'm sure that they will, and it's harder. I'm sure it'll take more effort than a single boo, obviously, more effort than a single refusal to obey in advance. I'm sure it's going to take more effort than that to actually save our democracy, both right now and in the long term, by fixing the problems that we have, like mass child maltreatment. But that all of those things are going to involve real sacrifices. But that moment was a profound moment of learning for me. And I have watched this whole machinery of destruction that has hurt us so much for 60 years, that has been the downfall of so many countries, and I pushed it. I pushed on it one of its symptoms. I pushed it, and it rang like a bell. And I'm not going to forget that. So, with that out of the way, I'm just going to get to the last act, if you will, of the rally, which was a live music display. And all of this happened in the pouring rain, by the way. But there was live music. And it was some of the most beautiful music that I've ever heard. I did not expect it from the people that from the people that tend to go to these marches. It was some of them that in the past they tended to be on the younger side, and they tended to be socially liberal, and these are too, but not so much. They were more average, and it was just some of the most beautiful music that I heard, some of the most beautiful folk country and early rock music that I've ever heard. Rock ballads. One of them was Ripple, which was originally written by the Grateful Dead, but this was a remix of it. More of a country folk remix of it. And this kind of beauty, it's very important. And it's especially important in normal politics. Like, I think that the Kamala Harris campaign really could have used more of this kind of stuff. Because when you're trying to convince people that it's worth it to bother going forward, to bother living in a way, because that's what the campaign was about at that moment. And I think the next campaign's also going to be about that. The Republican Party is showing no signs of having any desire to, any will to live in the long term. They're not showing any signs of that right now. So I think the next election, if we're going to have one, which is a miracle, is going to be another referendum, probably the last one, on whether we, in both directions, the last one, on whether we want to live as a nation or not. And the next presidential election, I think, will be that. And to have that kind of beauty in normal politics is important. But even in this moment, it is important. It's important for a different reason. And that is that we need to remember what we're fighting for. And we're also weaker people, and we need to have realistic expectations of ourselves. And beauty is a very helpful thing in that. Music and stuff like that is very helpful in helping in not helping ourselves to relax and to have confidence. And that's a good thing. When you're doing the work, when you're going to the rally, when you're making the videos like I am, when you're doing the work, and I'm going to be, when you're writing the emails to senators, everybody from senators to people on podcasts, when you're doing the work, it is a good thing. It makes it more sustainable if you try to feel good as well. And I've been feeling better each passing month of this administration. This is going to be the final thing that I say of the self-proclaimed Trump administration. Each passing month that they've been shown more incompetence and wasted more time and been unable to put totalitarianism, true totalitarianism, in place. Every single month that they've failed like that, I have been feeling better and better. And as long as things don't take a sharp turn, as long as they don't suddenly start succeeding on a lot of fronts, I'm going to continue feeling better. And even though, and I'm going to frame it for you, and this is the last thing I'm going to say. I'm going to frame it for you this way. And that is, in terms of self-care and beauty and things like that. And there's things that are not good for you, like overeating and gaming to numb and stuff like that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm all too familiar with that stuff. Worse things too. I am all too familiar with numbing your feelings and not taking care of yourself. But I would instruct you to view taking care of yourself to some degree as part of doing the work, as part of it. And it's not enough to stand on its own, obviously, but actually doing it in a healthy way. I would invite you, and this is a struggle for me, I would invite you to view it as a part of doing your civic duty is to take care of yourself. Because, and this is something that so many people have already said, but because it gives you something to fight for, it keeps you from burning out, and if you can imagine what you would want to create after this is done, after this regime is out, what you want to create. And what I want to create is a world in which we, the people, are protected from each other and protected from the wealthiest of us that want to exploit us. If you can imagine the world that you want in its beauty, that it gives you something to fight for, and it keeps you from burning out, and you're not gonna burn out when this is over. You're not gonna make the mistakes that we made last time. We were aimless last time, and that's why Trump got back in the White House illegally in this case. That's why it happened. And we should be grateful. I am not grateful enough, frankly. It's a confession I'm making. And this is 3 months in and nothing's happened. And not of the kinds of things that I expected. Not a physical coup d'etat. And so I'm grateful. I should be more grateful. And if we're grateful and if we have hope, then we can win. And good leadership. And that's the final lesson, I think, that I learned at that protest. So, good stuff. God bless y'all. I know it's not going to be as easy next time. Or maybe it will be. God bless you all. I can always pray for that. And I hope that you will be healthy and happy tomorrow when I see you I'm delaying the reading video for tomorrow. When I see you tomorrow for the reading and for reading the news, I hope that you're all there. This was a video I was happy to film, as much as I've droned on, and take care. God bless you all.